Okay, so get this. Imagine you're finally free from a terrifying kidnapping. And instead of getting support and comfort, you're suddenly facing accusations that you made the whole thing up. That's exactly what happened to Denise Huskins back in 2015. It's a story that really makes you question how quick we are to judge, especially when a story seems too crazy to be true.
Yeah, it's like, you hear these things on the news and you think, no way that could actually happen. But then you dig a little deeper, like we're doing now with these court documents and news reports, and you start to realize just how complicated the truth can be.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to do today. Take a deep dive into this case, explore all the twists and turns. So at the beginning, we have Denise Huskins and Aaron Quinn, a regular couple living in Vallejo, California.
Yeah, they were both physical therapists. Seemed like they had a pretty good life. Until March 23rd, 2015, that's when their nightmare began.
That's what happened.
Well, in the middle of the night, their home was broken into. Aaron later told the police these intruders were super strange. They wore these blacked out swim goggles, imagine that, used pre-recorded messages to talk, and they demanded a really specific ransom, like an amount structured in a way to avoid bank reporting limits.
Seriously, that sounds so planned out, almost like something out of a movie.
Right. Totally bizarre.
So what did the police do?
Well, when Aaron reported the kidnapping, the police, well, they didn't exactly believe him.
Really? Why not?
I mean, you can kind of understand why they might be a little suspicious, right? The whole thing sounded pretty unusual.
Yeah, I guess so.
Especially Detective Mustard, who was leading the investigation. He really fixated on the unusual parts. Like, he was determined to prove it was all a hoax.
Did he have any reason to think that, though?
Well, not really, but he kept comparing Aaron to Scott Peterson. The guy who was convicted of murdering his pregnant wife.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty heavy comparison to make.
Yeah, and, it really messed with Aaron. He was already going through so much, desperate to find Denise.
Right. I can't imagine how awful that must have been for him.
And, of course, the media just ran with it. Headlines all over the place, comparing the case to Gone Girl. The whole thing just blew up, fueled public suspicion even more.
So now on top of everything else, Denise and Aaron have to deal with being called liars and attention seekers.
Exactly. Public opinion is a powerful thing, and it can be really hard to fight against.
So what happened next?
Well, in the middle of all this chaos, there was a small sign of hope. The San Francisco Chronicle, they got an email with a voice recording of Denise.
Okay, so she was alive.
Yeah, she was alive. It seemed like pretty solid proof that Aaron was telling the truth.
So did that convince the police?
You'd think so, right? But Detective Mustard, he still wasn't buying it.
What? Seriously?
He suggested that even the recording could be fake, part of their big scheme.
Oh, okay.
He even brought up Denise's past, implied that maybe her past trauma was making her act this way.
Oh, come on. That's just wrong.
Yeah, it's not right at all. It shows a real lack of understanding about trauma and how it can affect people.
So what happened to Denise?
Well, a few days later, she reappeared in Huntington Beach. Safe, but really shaken up, obviously. She told a truly horrifying story about being drugged, threatened, and even assaulted during her captivity.
But even with her back and telling her story, the police still didn't believe her.
I know, it's unbelievable, right?
What was their excuse at that point?
Well, they still clung to the idea that it was all a hoax. And their response when Denise asked for a sexual assault examination kit, it was appalling.
What did they do?
They basically told her not to shower and to keep any evidence. Like, it was just a routine procedure.
Wow. That's just awful.
It just added to her trauma. Showed how little they cared about her well-being.
So at this point,
Mm-hmm.
the police are fully convinced it's a hoax. Denise is back, but deeply traumatized. What could possibly happen next?
Well, just when you think this story can't get any weirder, it takes another crazy turn.
Okay, I'm listening.
The kidnapper himself. He sends a 15-page manifesto to the San Francisco Chronicle.
He did why?
He was furious about the way the police were treating Denise and Aaron. He wanted to set the record straight.
So he admitted to the kidnapping.
He did. And he gave details about the crime, defended Denise and Aaron, even expressed remorse for taking the wrong woman.
So he was saying it was a real kidnapping, but he took the wrong person.
Yeah, it's really strange.
And what about the police?
He demanded a public apology from them for how badly they handled the whole thing.
Wow, okay. It's like he was trying to force the police to see the truth.
Exactly. But even with the kidnapper's confession, the Vallejo police, well, they just wouldn't budge.
Seriously, how could they still think it was a hoax after all that?
It's hard to understand, isn't it? But thankfully, the truth has a way of coming out. And it all started with another case in Dublin, California.
Another case.
Yeah, and this one had some very familiar details. Details that would finally blow this whole thing wide open.
Okay, now I really need to hear what happened next.
So picture this. June 2015, Dublin, California. A woman calls 911, terrified, saying she and her husband have been attacked in their own home. The details, they were chilling. Bright lights, laser pointers, zip ties.
Hold on. Those details, they sound kind of familiar, don't they?
Yeah, they're eerily similar to what happened to Denise and Aaron, and it's this case in Dublin that really starts to unravel the truth. During the investigation, the police found a cell phone at the crime scene.
Okay, so whose phone was it?
It belonged to a man named Matthew Muller, a former Marine, get this, a Harvard law graduate.
Yeah?
And to make it even crazier, he'd been disbarred for stealing from his clients.
Wow. A Harvard law grad turned home invader. That's quite a story.
And the story gets even wilder. The police searched Muller's home and a storage unit he rented, and they found a ton of evidence. Ski masks, stun guns, and guess what else?
Blacked out swim goggles.
You got it.
Okay, this can't be a coincidence anymore.
Definitely not. Now, there was this detective, Detective Misty, sharp as a tack. She noticed a blonde hair on one of the goggles, and she immediately thought of Denise Huskins.
She connected the two cases.
Yep, even though the Vallejo police were still stuck on the hoax theory. Detective Misty, she trusted her gut and followed the lead.
Thank goodness for her. She sounds like she really went the extra mile.
She did. It took a lot of convincing, and the FBI got involved too. But finally, the Vallejo police had to take another look at the evidence.
I can't believe they were still so resistant. What finally made them change their minds?
Well, the evidence against Muller was just overwhelming. Besides the stuff that matched Denise and Aaron's descriptions, the FBI found the recordings of those pre-recorded messages from the kidnapping, videos of the assault, even GPS data putting Muller in Huntington Beach when Denise was released.
Wow. So finally, there was undeniable proof that Denise and Aaron were telling the truth. After all that time, all that doubt and scrutiny.
It must have been such a relief for them.
Absolutely.
The truth had finally come out. It's like a reminder that sometimes, even when things seem impossible, justice can prevail.
So what happened to Matthew Muller?
Well, with all that evidence stacked against him, he ended up pleading guilty to kidnapping Denise Huskins. And he was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison.
40 years, wow.
Yeah, and he got another 31 years on top of that for the Dublin home invasion.
So he's definitely paying for his crimes.
Yeah, he is. But there are still some unanswered questions in this case.
Like what?
Well, Muller claimed he had severe bipolar disorder, and he insisted that he acted alone.
Interesting. Did Denise and Aaron believe that?
They didn't actually. Both Denise and Aaron believed there were other people involved. They pointed to how complicated the whole kidnapping was, and they said they heard other voices while they were held captive.
Oh, wow. So there could still be people out there who were involved, but they were never caught.
Nope, no one else was ever charged. It's one of those mysteries that might never be fully solved.
It makes you wonder if there's more to the story than we know. But even if we never get all the answers, at least Denise and Aaron finally had the truth on their side. After everything they went through, the trauma, the accusations, the public humiliation, it must have been incredibly difficult to rebuild their lives.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. They faced so much scrutiny, their careers were affected, and the emotional scars, they probably run deep.
So what did they do?
Well, they decided to fight back. They filed a lawsuit against the Vallejo Police Department for defamation.
That makes sense. Their reputations were dragged through the mud. And it was all because the police refused to believe them.
Exactly.
So what happened with the lawsuit?
They actually reached a $2.5 million settlement with the city in 2018.
Wow, that's a lot of money. But I guess no amount of money can really compensate for what they went through.
Right. It's more about accountability and recognition of the harm that was done.
Did the police ever apologize publicly?
Unfortunately, no. They sent a private letter of apology to Denise and Aaron, but they never admitted fault publicly.
That's disappointing. Seems like they were trying to sweep it under the rug.
Yeah, it's a shame. And it really highlights the need for more accountability in law enforcement.
I agree. So even with the settlement and the truth finally coming out, it sounds like there's still a lot of pain and unresolved issues. How did Denise and Aaron cope with all of this?
Well, it couldn't have been easy, but they had each other, and that's a powerful thing. They ended up getting married. And in 2020, Denise gave birth to a baby girl.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful news.
Yeah, it's like a symbol of hope and new beginnings. And you know what's really amazing?
No, it's that.
Their daughter was born on the anniversary of Denise's release from captivity.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like everything came full circle.
It really is. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always a chance for healing and happiness.
Well, that's a beautiful thought to end on. This whole story, it's been a roller coaster of emotions.
It really has.
It makes you think about how quickly we judge, how easily we can be swayed by appearances.
And the importance of keeping an open mind.
Absolutely. Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction, and it's up to us to be critical thinkers, to question what we hear and see, and to always be willing to listen to different perspectives.
So just said it better myself?
So to all our listeners out there,
Yeah.
next time you hear a story that seems unbelievable, take a step back. Remember Denise and Aaron's story. And remember that the truth might just surprise you.